Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost of the one true God, back with you with the next video in my series reading The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Without further ado, returning to The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, as read by Lord Naren White. So Tom says, "What's the victuals for? You want to feed the dogs?" The black kind of smiled around gradually over his face, like when you have a brick bat in a mud puddle, and he says, "Yes, Mars Sid, a dog. Kerr's dog, too. Does you want to go in and look at him?" "Yes." I hunched Tom and whispers, "You going, right here in the daybreak? That warn't the plan." "No, it weren't, but it's the plan now." So drat him. We went along, but I didn't like it much. When we got in, we couldn't hardly see anything. It was so dark, but Jim was there sure enough, and could see us, and he sings out, "Why, Huck, and good land, ain't that Mr. Tom?" I just knowed how it would be. I just expected it. I just know nothing to do. And if I had, I couldn't have done it, because that black busted in and says, "Why the gracious sakes, do he know you, gentlemen?" We could see pretty well now. Tom looked at that black, steady and kind of wondering, and says, "Does who know us?" "Why, this year runaway black." "I don't reckon he does, but what put that into your head?" "What put it there? Didn't he just this minute sing out like he knowed you?" Tom says in a puzzled up kind of way, "Well, that's mighty curious. Who sung out? When did he sing out? What did he sing you? What did he sing out?" And turns to me perfectly calm and says, "Did you hear anybody sing out?" Of course, there weren't nothing to be said but the one thing, so I says, "No, I ain't heard nobody said nothing." Then he turns to Jim and looks him over like he never see him before and says, "Did you sing out?" "No, sir," says Jim. "I ain't said nothing, sir. Not a word. No, sir, I ain't said a word." "Did you ever see us before?" "No, sir, not as I knows on." So Tom turns to the black, which was looking wild and distressed, and says, kind of severe, "What do you reckon the matter with you, anyway? What made you think somebody sung out?" "Oh, it's Dad's blame witches, sir, and I wished I was dead, I do. They's always at it. There's always at it, sir, and they most kill me. They scares me so. Please don't tell nobody about it, sir, or old Mars Silas he'll scold me, case he say they ain't no witches. I just wish to goodness he was here now. Then what would he say? I just bet he couldn't find no way to get round it this time. But it's always just so. People that saw it stays sawed. They won't look into nothing fine and find it out for themselves. And when you find it out and tell 'em about it, they don't believe you." Tom give him a dime and said we wouldn't tell nobody, and told him to buy some more thread to tie up his wool with, and then looks at Jim and says, "I wonder if Uncle Silas is going home to hang this black. If I was to catch a black that was ungrateful enough to run away, I wouldn't give him up. I'd hang him." And whilst the black stepped to the door to look at the dime and bite it to see if it was good, he whispers to Jim and says, "Don't ever let on to know us, and if you hear any digging going on nights, it's us. We're going to set you free." Jim only had time to grab us by the hand and squeeze it. Then the black came back, and we said we'd come again sometime if the black wanted us to. And he said he would, more particular if it was dark, because the witches went for him mostly in the dark, and it was good to have folks around then. Chapter 35. It would be most an hour yet till breakfast, so we left and struck down into the woods because Tom said we got to have some light to see how it dig by, and a lantern makes too much and might get us into trouble. What we must have was a lot of them rotten chunks that's called foxfire, and just makes a soft kind of glow when you lay them in a dark place. We fetched an armful and hid it in the weeds and sat down to rest. And Tom says, kind of dissatisfied, "Blame it. This whole thing is just as easy and awkward as it can be, and so it makes it so rotten difficult to get up a difficult plan. There ain't no watchman to be drugged. Now there ought to be a watchman. There ain't even a dog to give a sleeping mixture to. And there's Jim chained by one leg, with a 10-foot chain to the leg of his bed. Why, all you got to do is lift up the bedstead and slip off the chain. And Uncle Silas, he trusts everybody, sends the key to the pumpkin-headed black, and don't send nobody to watch the black. Jim could a got out of that window hole before this, only there wouldn't be no use trying to travel with a 10-foot chain on his leg. Why, drat it, Huck, it's the stupidest arrangement I ever see. You got to invent all the difficulties. Well, we can't help it. We got to do the best we can with the materials we've got. Anyhow, there's one thing. There's more honor in getting him out through a lot of difficulties and dangers, where there weren't one of them furnished to you by the people who it was their duty to furnish them, and you had to contrive them all out of your own head. Now look at just that one thing of the lantern. When you come down to the cold facts, we simply got to let on a lantern's risky. Why, we could work with the torchlight procession if we wanted to, I believe. Now, whilst I think of it, we got to hunt up something to make a saw out of the first chance we get." "What do we want of a saw? What do we want of a saw? Ain't we got to saw the leg off Jim's bed off so as to get the chain loose?" "Why, you just said a body could lift up the bedstead and slip the chain off." "Well, if that ain't just like you, Huck Finn, you can get up the infant schooliest ways of going a thing. Why, ain't you ever read any books at all? Baron Trenck, nor Casanova, nor Benvenuto Cellini, nor Henry IV, nor none of them heroes. Whoever heard of getting a prisoner loose in such an old maidy was as that? No, the way all the best authorities does is to saw the bed leg in two, and leave it just so, and swallow the sawdust so it can't be found, and put some dirt and grease around the sawed place so the very keenest seneschal can't see no sign of it being sawed, and thinks the bed leg is perfectly sound. Then the night you're ready, fetch the leg a kick. Down she goes. Slip off your chain, and there you are. Nothing to do but hitch your rope ladder to the battlements, shin it down, break your leg in the moat, because a rope ladder is 19 foot too short, you know. And there's your horses and your trusty vassals, and they scoop you up and fling you across a saddle, and away you go to your native Languedoc or Navarre or wherever it is. It's gaudy, Huck. I wish there was a moat to this cabin. If we get time, the night of the escape, we'll dig one." I says, "What do we want of a moat when we're going to snake him out from under the cabin?" But he never heard me. He had forgot me and everything else. He had his chin in his hand, thinking. Pretty soon he sighs and shakes his head, then sighs again and says, "No, it wouldn't do. There ain't necessity enough for it." "For what?" I says. "Why, to saw Jim's leg off," he says. "Good land," I says. "Why, there ain't no necessity for it. And what would you want to saw his leg off for, anyway?" "Well, some of the best authorities has done it. They couldn't get the chain off, so they just cut their hand and shoved. And a leg would be better still. But we got to let that go. There ain't necessity enough in this case, and besides, Jim's a black, and wouldn't understand the reasons for it. And now it's the custom in Europe, so we'll let it go. But there's one thing. He can have a rope ladder. We can tear up our sheets and make him a rope ladder easy enough. And we can send it to him in a pie. It's mostly done that way, and I have ate worse pies." "Why, Tom Sawyer, how you talk?" I says. "Jim ain't got no use for a rope ladder." "He has got use for it. How you talk, you better say. You don't know nothing about it. He's got to have a rope ladder. They all do." "What in the nation can he do with it?" "Do with it? He can hide it in his bed, can't he?" We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thank you. Thanks again.